Hello again, I'm Sam B. Hansen. Today I'm going to be playing two movements from The Planets by Gustav Holst, who was an English composer of the early 20th century, arranged for piano solo by Sam Lung, Hywel Davies and Andrew Skirrow. The Planets is Holst's most famous work, most well-known work, written between 1914 and 1916, originally for two pianos. Apart from Neptune, the final movement, which was written for single organ, but later orchestrated, and it's the version for large orchestra, which is now the most well-known and the most celebrated. The piece contains 7 movements, each for a different planet, and named after the planet's astrological character, which was a subject that Holst had recently, at the time, had taken interest in. The 7 movements are Mars, the bringer of war; Venus, the bringer of peace; Mercury, the winged messenger; Jupiter, the bringer of jollity; Saturn, the bringer of old age; Uranus, the magician; and Neptune, the mystic. And as a child discovering this piece, one of my first questions about it was, what about Pluto? Which is perhaps a question that's less likely to be asked by a school child of today, given the demotion of Pluto from planetary status in 2006. But when Holst wrote The Planets in the 1910s, Pluto hadn't even been discovered, and it wouldn't be until 1930. You could also ask about the omission of Earth from the list of planets. Perhaps Holst's focus was more on distant worlds rather than our own, although other composers have since tried to add movements for Pluto and Earth to the existing 7 in the original suite that Holst wrote. The 2 most famous movements are probably Mars and Jupiter, but today I'd like to play you my 2 favourites, which are Venus, the bringer of peace, and Mercury, the winged messenger. And in Venus, Holst manages to achieve a sense of complete serenity in this piece, as the title suggests. It's almost like a lullaby at times. It's very calming. Whereas in Mercury, being the winged messenger, the music flits about the place the whole time at a much faster tempo with lots of changeable rhythms. It's also worth perhaps just looking for a few minutes at some of the chords that Holst chooses to juxtapose, and to do this I'm enlisting the help of something called the cycle of fifths, which you'll see on the screen now, or will appear gradually on the screen, along with a picture of the keyboard, piano keyboard, which you can also see on the screen now. The keyboard is built around a scale of C major, which uses just the white notes. If I play just the white notes from C up to the next C, that is a C major scale. The smallest distance that we can have between 2 notes on the piano, at least, is called a semitone. So from C to C sharp is a semitone, from D sharp to E is a semitone, E to F is also a semitone because there's no black note in between E and F. And a tone is simply 2 semitones. So C to D would be a tone, E flat to F would be a tone, A flat to B flat would also be a tone. And if I pick any note on the piano, we'll just take C for the moment, and from that note follow the pattern tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone, I will always get a major scale. Doesn't matter which note you pick, the result will always be a major scale, a familiar scale. And with C, I don't need to use any black notes, I just use the white notes there. Now, this is where we bring in the term cycle of fifths. If we go up a perfect fifth from C, the original note, we end up on G, because it's the 5th note of that C major scale. There it is. for a discussion of different kinds of fifths, fans of Bill Bailey might like to look up his work on Doorbells. I'll leave you to discover that on your own, it's brilliant. If I start from G and follow the same pattern, tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone, I now need to use this black note here, F sharp. The reason we call it F sharp rather than G flat, which would also be a possible name, is so that we end up with one of each letter in each octave of the scale, because otherwise we'd have two kinds of G, G flat and G, and no F, and it would look wonky when you write it on the stave, on a piece of paper. So we've just added a sharp to the scale, this first sharp, F sharp. If I go up another fifth from G, where we were just now, this time to D, and play the same pattern again from D, tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. The F sharp is still there, but we've now added a C sharp at the top as well. I go up another fifth from D to A and play the same pattern again. C sharp is still there, so is F sharp, and we now have G sharp as well. Every time I go up a fifth, I add a sharp to the number of sharps in the scale of that note, of that key. So where were we? We were to A, that had 3 sharps. If I go up another fifth, E major has 4, B major has 5, and F sharp major has 6. Now there are only 5 black notes. How do we have 6 sharps? The 7th note here we call E sharp, which is a white note because it's just a semitone above the E. The reason, again, the same reason as before, we call it E sharp so that there's one of every letter, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, in the octave. Otherwise, again, we'd have 2 Fs and no E, and it wouldn't look like a proper scale. So as you can see there, that takes us right down to the bottom of the circle, on the sharp side, the right-hand side of the circle. If we go back to our original C, you'll see where I'm going with all this in a minute. And this time I go down a fifth. Down a perfect fifth to F. If I follow that same pattern again, tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone, I now have to use this black note here. And in this case we call it B flat. Again, because if we called it A sharp, we'd have 2 A's and no B, and it wouldn't look like a proper scale. F, G, A, B flat, C, D, E, F. Every time I go down a fifth instead of up a fifth, I add a flat to the scale instead of a sharp. A perfect fifth below F is B flat, which has B flat in it, of course, and a second flat, E flat, is now added. If I go down another fifth to E flat, we now add A flat to the scale. There are now 3 flats. A further fifth, A flat major has 4, D flat major has 5, and finally G flat major has 6. And the 6th flat here is C flat, which is another white note. Otherwise we'd have 2 kinds of B and no C. And you see G flat has crashed into F sharp at the bottom of the circle because they are, as far as the piano is concerned, they're the same note. There's F sharp, there's G flat, they sound the same, they're equivalent. Now the reason for showing you this, the beginning of the reason for showing you this, is if I play chords that are near each other in the circle, they sound as though they belong together because they share a lot of notes in their scales. There's a C major chord, I could play an F chord, it sounds as though it belongs. G is just on the other side of C, back to C, and I can do that anywhere. I could start with A flat, for instance. I could play D flat on one side, E flat is just on the other, back to A flat. They all sound as though they belong with each other. My favourite example of this is in a track by progressive rock band Yes, and the track's called Awaken. It's from their 1977 album Going for the One, and there are 2 sections in this track, one in the middle and one towards the end, where they start in what is the home key for the track, which is E major, and they go all the way round the cycle of fifths anti-clockwise, following all the major chords all the way around. So they go E, A, D, G, C, F, B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, F sharp, B, E, and then they go around again. They go around several times in a row. It's a sort of merry-go-round of fifths, if you like, and it just shows how all 12 major chords are linked to each other. What's this got to do with Holst and Mercury? In Mercury, Holst has gone exactly the other way. What he's done is he's chosen two chords from the cycle of fifths that are directly opposite each other, as far apart as they could possibly be. In this case, B flat and E. You listen to those two. Just play them. They sound quite distant from each other. They're not really related to each other, and yet he puts them next to each other like this. B flat, E, B flat, E, B flat, E, A, E. Those two are next to each other. At one point we get, a bit later on, D, A, E. But fairly soon he's back to B flat, E, B flat, E. And because they sound distant from each other, to me that kind of suggests this feeling of travel, or messaging if you like, or vast distance across space. I think he's been quite deliberate there in his choice of chords, and it's very effective. It just shows how powerful a choice of two chords can be when put in the right context. So here we are. This is Venus and Mercury from the Planets by Holst, arranged for piano solo by Sam Lung, Hywel Davies and Andrew Skirrow. Enjoy. Thanks very much for watching today. Hope you've enjoyed it. In the next video in 2 weeks' time, which will be Friday the 19th of March 2021, I'll be showing a video that I filmed a little while ago when I returned to my hometown of Wimborne Minster in Dorset, and where I recorded some of my earlier organ pieces on the Minster organ and had a little look around the building as well while I was there. And slightly more than 2 weeks after that, which will be Easter Sunday, the 4th of April, I'll be joined by my partner, Riona Sachs, and our friends Susie Duggan and Ollie Glynn in a series of choral pieces for Holy Week and Easter. Holy Week being the week that begins on Palm Sunday and leads through Maundy Thursday and Good Friday up to Easter Day itself. Rio, Susie, Ollie and I last sang together on the channel in the Christmas special 2020, which was video 27. We had lots of fun doing that. I'm very glad that they're able to join me again in this video in just over 4 weeks' time. That's it for today. Thanks very much once again for watching. Hope you've enjoyed it, and see you next time.